So now that we have an optional property, how do we use it? Well, the safety that optionals add to Swift is that the compiler is usually going to warn us that a property that we're trying to use is optional and that it may be nil. And using a property that has a nil value is bad and is the most common crash that you'll see when you're programming. So just like you won't know whether the gift box that I gave you in our silly example has a gift in it until you actually open it, an optional property in Swift, we won't know if it has a value inside of it until we properly unwrap it. Now, one way to safely unwrap an optional is by using what's called an if-let statement. Okay, so with our middle name up here, right, this middle name optional property, let's properly unwrap it before we try to print it out. Okay, because we don't want to use middle name for anything if it has the value of nil. So let's go ahead and we're going to start with an if-let here. And we're going to say if-let unwrapped middle name. Okay. And so I'm going to give this a name. Okay. I'm creating a new constant here that is going to hold the unwrapped value of middle name. If it exists, right? I don't know if it exists or not. So if let unwrapped middle name is equal to whatever value is inside of my middle name property, then let's go ahead and print out an unwrapped middle name. Okay, I don't want to print out middle name, right? Because that's not safe. We have an unwrapped middle name. The unwrapped value of middle name is inside this unwrapped middle name property. Okay, so we're going to print out our unwrapped middle name. Now, if middle name doesn't have a value, if it's nil, then we're going to print out this user does not have a middle name. Okay, so now if we run our code, we see that middle name in our case here was nil. And so it didn't have a value, which means that the value inside didn't get stored in this unwrapped middle name because it didn't exist. So instead we print out that the user does not have a middle name. Okay, so I know that this concept may seem scary and kind of weird, but over time you're going to see how awesome optionals are. And we'll get more practice with them throughout the course, but to solidify your understanding, let's go through a couple of properties and decide whether they would be optionals or not. Okay, so we already talked about first name, middle name, and last name, right? So first name, probably not going to be optional because that's required. Most people have a first name. Same with the last name, but middle name, that would be a good candidate for an optional property because not everybody has a middle name. Let's say that we've got a property for favorite color. Okay, let favorite color be of type string. Well, maybe somebody doesn't have a favorite color. Okay, so that could be something that's optional. Okay, and so if I said let favorite color equal green, and I wanted to print out the user's favorite color, well, I could say, okay, if let unwrapped favorite color equal favorite color, then let's print out our unwrapped favorite color. Otherwise, we'll print out this user does not have a favorite color. Okay, and if we run this code, it's going to print out green, right? Because even though favorite color is optional, it does have a value. And we assigned that value to our unwrapped favorite color that we can then properly use in our print statement. We can print it out and it indeed does print green. Okay. Well, what if we have something like temperature? Okay. So back to our temperature, right? Temperature is not going to be something that's optional, right? Because it's on a scale of negative whatever to positive whatever, right? There's never not a temperature. So that would be something that wouldn't be an optional property. Same with like a gas tank level. Okay, if we were writing an app for our car, well, if the car has a gas tank, its level is either 0 or not 0, right? But it would never be nothing. It would never be nil. So that would be something that wouldn't necessarily be an optional. Okay, and whether certain things should be optionals or not, it depends on the context, and that's what you'll have to decide as you write your own programs. So let's do a little challenge to help us think about this optional concept a little bit more. I want you to think of some properties that you would use to describe a business, okay? And I want you to write a variable for each property. Now it's up to you to decide whether or not that property should be optional and then label it as such. So go ahead and pause the video and try to think of some properties that you would use to describe a business and label them whether they should be optional or not. And then we'll run through it together. Okay, so I want to write a few properties here for a business, okay? Well, we know that a business has an address, okay? But what if they don't really have like a brick and mortar location, okay? So maybe that would be something that's optional. So we've got this address that's optional because maybe our whole business is online and we don't have an address, okay? A phone number, that could be, it could be optional, right? Maybe we don't have a phone number associated with our business. What about number of employees? Okay, well, you either have 0 or you have more than 0, right? So that would be something that's not optional. That would just be a regular old integer here, and even an unsigned integer, right? Because you can't have negative employees. What about a bool, whether the company offers benefits or not? Okay, well, this wouldn't be an optional, right? Because it either does or it doesn't. And then let's say we've got like a website, okay? That, again, it depends on the context, but it could be something that's optional. Maybe your business doesn't have a website.